Thank you for joining us for the Strathcona County Diversity Committee's Interfaith Harmony Week. We invited members of all religions and spiritual practices to share their thoughts and beliefs in relation to 7 questions. Over Interfaith Harmony Week, February 1st to 7th, 2021, we are shaping the responses we received by focusing on one question each day. Our hope is that through these presentations, we will all learn a bit about our neighbors. It is through knowing about and understanding the beliefs of others and how those beliefs guide their daily lives, and that we can build a community which is supportive and welcoming. The videos have not been edited. The beliefs and opinions expressed in them are solely those of the speakers and not necessarily those of other members of their faith community or of Strathcona County Diversity Committee. Today's topic is on service in the community.
Hi, my name's Fiona Adi. I'm a member of the Baha'i community. Today I want to talk about service and how we fit service into our lives. In today's world, it's often a struggle to aspire to the lofty ideals of providing service to humanity. We routinely have a myriad of balls in the air at once: bills to pay, traffic jams to navigate, meetings and appointments to juggle, personal relationships to manage, and professional opportunities to pursue. And in the past year, staying healthy and keeping those around us healthy. We're all so caught up in our own busy, hectic worlds that it's a huge effort to think beyond that. Service to humanity is an act that springs from the love of all humanity and a recognition of its oneness. It stems directly from the one spiritual principle that's emphasized over all others in every religion, the Golden Rule. The Golden Rule is by no means easy to follow. It takes a huge investment in emotional, mental, and physical energy. It demands that we show compassion and empathy and allow ourselves to remain sensitive to and aware of the suffering of others, in spite of the temptation to block out and ignore the unpleasant realities of the world we live in. It involves taking time out of our own lives as we consider how we might improve the lives of those around us. It involves making sacrifices in our own lives as we act to alleviate the suffering of the disadvantaged and oppressed. Service to humanity is the act of making sacrifices for people we don't necessarily know or have any close connection with, simply by virtue of our spiritual connection to them as part of one universal spiritual family. It's an act like that, when replicated by many, that results in the material progress and the advancement of human civilization. Additionally, the act of service to humanity has the power to unite the hearts of all mankind as individuals and societies develop their spiritual capacities. A quotation from the Baha'i writing sums it up. Man is he who forgets his own interests for the sake of others. His own comfort he forfeits for the well-being of all. Nay, rather, his own life must he be willing to forfeit for the life of mankind. Such a man is the honor of the world of humanity. Such a man is the glory of the world of mankind. Such a man is the very manifestation of eternal bliss. Just as a note, man in that quote is understood to be any human being, so it applies to all of us. So while it's very important to focus on our own spiritual development through prayer, deepening our knowledge on spiritual matters, and inquiring virtues, this is only half our spiritual journey in this world. We are also reminded the importance of the active efforts involved with the worship of God. Service is a hugely important part of Baha'i spiritual life, so much so that it's been elevated to the rank of worship. Here's another quote. All effort and exhortation put forth by man from the fullness of his heart is worship, if it is promoted by the highest motives and the will to do service to humanity. This is worship, to serve mankind and to minister to the needs of people. Service is prayer. Young Baha'is often spend a youth year of service devoting that particular time of their lives to full-time service to a community. And most Baha'is devote a certain amount of their time within their daily lives volunteering for specific service projects. Some of those projects are run by the Baha'i community. In other cases, Baha'is work with others in community-based organizations and groups on projects that support and uplift members of the wider community. However, while all these activities are important, and I think it's important also to not draw rigid lines and create dichotomies between the time we spend doing our acts of service and the rest of our lives. Rather than being seen merely as a specific number of hours we have to put in towards a cause or a goal, I think service should be an attitude that permeates throughout our whole lives. Whether it's by making the work of another person easier, by showing friendliness and patience to the person serving us when we're at a store or an office, being just generous to the drivers as we crawl through peak hour traffic, wearing our face masks when we're out in public, or remembering to show our appreciation for acts of service done by a loved one. There are numerous ways we can strive to live coherent, holistic lives of service. The more we search for ourselves, the less we are able to find ourselves. And the more we search for God and serve our fellow men, the more profoundly will we become acquainted with ourselves and the more inwardly assured. This is one of the great spiritual laws of life. So go out and be of service in your community. And thank you for listening.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this particular segment of questions and answers for the Diversity Committee. And the question we're looking at from the Christian spiritual tradition is, how is your spiritual community serving the wider community? And so maybe, Jeff, you'd like to start and give us your take on that answer to that question.
Sure. Maybe I'll start kind of wider, and then I'll kind of go a little more narrow. Maybe the first answer I'll give, Baptists are, of course, one particular denomination. There's many denominations out there, and many of them have different things that they do. Kind of in the Edmonton area, maybe one that I'll add that came to mind to me just now is that the mustard seed street ministry is something that a number of Baptist churches got together on many years ago, and that'd be an example of serving the poor. Our particular family of churches, like many other faith groups, has a particular relationship with the Canadian government that allows us to quite easily sponsor refugees. And so we're glad to be a part of that. And our particular local Baptist church, Trinity, has had the privilege, alongside of, I know, a number of other churches here in Sherwood Park, of sponsoring Syrian refugees. And we've done that recently, and it's been a real joy for us. Perhaps two other kind of unique ones that are a little bit related to our church. I could be corrected on some of the finer details of this, but if you go back in time here in Sherwood Park, some people from our church were highly engaged in the startup of what's now known as the Robin Hood Association, which is an agency that provides daytime and overnight programming for adults with developmental disabilities. And that's been a real neat thing for many folks to be a part of. I know that there was a little bit of a kind of an offshoot of that created a bit of a Christian chapel for many of the people involved in the organization. And many folks from our church and others were a part of that, and serving the community, serving that aspect of the community. Maybe one more thing that I'll add, and then maybe I'll let someone else have a turn. Just very recently in our church, we've had some people start up a local chapter of this thing called Sleep in Heavenly Peace, which is an organization that builds bunk beds for children who are in underprivileged families. Many of them might be women who are escaping domestic abuse, and they go to the women's shelter, and they end up living on their own, and they barely have any clothes on their back, let alone furniture. And so this particular organization tries to give kids beds. And not just our church, many churches, many companies and individuals have been able to kind of tag into this. But anyway, that's a number of examples, probably too many. Why don't I let Adam and Britt, I'll let you guys have a turn talking as well.
Mm-hmm. Why don't you go ahead, Adam?
Sure. So the Adventist Church has had a long-standing kind of part of kind of social development over the years, from when it started back in the mid-1800s. Whenever there was kind of a social movement that was afoot, Adventism kind of found its place within that. Not always necessarily at the front of the line as we often could have been. Sometimes it took us a while to get into it, but I think one of the things that we have truly found kind of our niche in is the idea of social development, particularly in the realm of disaster relief and kind of development in other kind of disaster situations or third world situations. The Adventist Development and Relief Association is a worldwide network of, as it says, disaster and relief movement that will go into situations. I think even of the Fort McMurray fires a few years back, our Alberta branch of the Adventist Disaster Relief Agency spearheaded the distribution of resources. So all of the resources that were gathered here in Edmonton were actually managed and then sent up and distributed through ADRA. So we've been very much sought to be on the forefront of those things. Very active movement for helping with building construction in parts of the world where the resources are not as readily available. I've been out on a mission trip to Zimbabwe to help build schools, for example. Right here in my own backyard down in Lacombe, I'm actually living in Lacombe, though I'm part of the Strathcona Ministerial Association. We have an organization known as A Better World that is involved in development programs all over the world, and has actually just celebrated its 30th anniversary. And it was based right here from a couple of people that kind of had a passion for doing some of that. I think the thing that all of this comes from, just to kind of, and it's funny because all of these questions end up tying together, is that idea of the kingdom of God. Believing that the kingdom of God is about making what we can in this world better for the purpose of moving closer to God's ideal and preparing for that ultimate arrival of God's kingdom. That's been the motivating factor behind what we do. So whether it's something simple, I know my church in Sherwood Park, when I was pastoring there, every Christmas we would collect funds to give to a local charity, whether it was Robin Hood or the local literacy association or those sorts of things. We believe that it's important to make a difference in the community, and that takes a lot of creative ways. But just the fact that we believe that's part of being a Christian, that's part of God's realm in this world, and helping expand and build the purposes of God for the uplifting of humanity. That's really what motivates and drives what we do.
Yeah, I mean, that's a thread that I think we would all agree on. I'm wondering, Jeff, do the Baptists have kind of an international organization?
Yes, yeah, and I kind of feel a little sheepish for not thinking of it until Adam mentioned the one that the Adventists have. We have something called the Baptist World Alliance, and very similar to yours, Adam, because we have all these different Baptist groups scattered in nations all around the world. Whenever there is one of those, like a natural disaster or other kind of humanitarian needs, typically it's that national branch that would then send an appeal up to the international body, who then connects everyone else together, and then the rest of the countries who are able respond to those needs. So yeah, we definitely would have one. Britt, why don't you tell us how you would answer that question?
Well, I would say that one of the advantages, if you are a church which has an umbrella over it, and so in that way, some of the Christian churches and denominations are more independent congregationally, and some actually have a lot more direction coming from an overall umbrella. And one of the advantages, I guess, of being so we have a really strong national organization called the Mission and Service Fund that does a lot of kind of social and justice work. So, for example, the Bissell Center in Edmonton, which actually started out as a United Church congregation, became an inner city center for support for people that need a whole range of things. And so we can give money to that because we give to the national fund, which then gives money back to them. So that is one thing. It allows us to do more than we could do on our own as one congregation. And then in each congregation in the United Church would find the things that it wants to contribute to on its own. So we too do annual kind of giving drives at Christmas for different things. We do food bank collections occasionally. And I know at one point when Sherwood Park was just beginning to come into being, there was no residence here for seniors in the park. And so our church donated some of our land so that seniors residence could be built next to us. And so that the seniors who were here could stay here. We do things, we have done things like that over the years. We've sponsored refugees too, which has been one of our recent sort of pieces that has been really satisfying and joyful to be part of. So I would say similar story to what you've both said with the things that we would do from where we are as United Church. Very important part of who we are, though. I mean, because Methodism is also part of our heritage, and the Methodists always emphasized, doing for others. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny. I'm the one that feels a little sheepish now, Jeff, because Britt mentioned the long-term care center over by Salisbury, Sherwood Care, which is located right in the heart of Sherwood Park. Is a Seventh-day Adventist owned and operated long-term care center that has been around for 50 plus years. It's almost as old as the park itself, and was established on that very idea that we wanted to create a support to the community. And what's also really neat about that is that out of Sherwood Care, the Meals on Wheels operation is functioning. And it is the longest running, and I believe one of the only currently operating in the Greater Edmonton area Meals on Wheels that provides a hot meal every day to people in the community that are in need. But with that, and it kind of ties together what you were talking about, that network concept, Britt, a lot of the people that are drivers for the Meals on Wheels actually come out of Our Lady of Perpetual Help Catholic Parish. And I think that's one of the things that is kind of unique, perhaps, in some ways about Christianity. And I think even of our own Ministerial Association, when we meet every month, one of the things we talk about is, are there requests that have come to our individual churches from the community? And amongst ourselves, we network to try and provide support. So maybe they come to the Baptist church and they ask for help, and the Baptists might not have the best resource for that particular need, but we then partner with and network with the other churches in the community to say, well, I may not be able to do that, but I can send you over here, and vice versa. When they come to the other place, they might get directed to get the support that they need. And then, of course, we partner with the community networks as well, family social services and that sort of thing, to make sure that we are, so we seek to be proactive in helping the community at large, and not just kind of, and I think sometimes people think, oh, the Christians, they really are good at looking after their own, but we also really do seek to mobilize for the greater community.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Another question is, how's your spiritual community serving the wider community? There are many ways in which the Ahmadiyya Muslim community serves the greater global community. One of those ways is through charitable means. Particularly, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has launched a global charitable organization called Humanity First. Humanity First is at the forefront of disaster relief all across the world, whether it be in the global north, global south, or anywhere in between. Humanity First has started many other initiatives like Water for Life, Gift for Sight, Orphan Care, amongst many others. In many developing countries, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community serves the needy in the fields of education, health, housing, and in any other areas of need. However, despite all these efforts, one of the most fundamental efforts of Ahmadiyya Muslim community is to spread a message of peace all across the world. First and foremost, this is done through the community's pacifist and peaceful teachings. Regarding global peace, the worldwide head of the community, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, Ayyadahullah Ta'ala, has addressed parliaments, presidents, and any other world leaders on how to establish a pathway to peace. This has led to the creation a pathway to peace, an initiative started by the community to spread 9 fundamental principles to establish world peace. We hope to spread a message of love for all and hatred for none.